before we start our panel discussion, I want to give them at least 1 minute each person to talk about your story, right? So outside of the official kind of introduction. So Sahar, can you give us your story?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sahar. As Lee kindly mentioned, I am Senior Director of JSOC Analytics team at RBC. I'm leading a team of data scientists, machine learning engineers, big data engineers, and AI researchers to develop ML, AI, big data capabilities for security and digital risk related at bank. I work with quite different partners, like I think 25, 26 internal and external partners at the bank to achieve next generation of security detection and preventions at RBC. I'm also part of Technical Distinguished Program at RBC. The program is there to impact technological experts through three main pillars, I would say: technical expertise, prominent influential expertise, and business impact. So RBC has a program for technical people to amplify their expertise, their influence at the bank, to make sure we are ahead of the curve at all the time.
Excellent. And that's very cool, actually. That's actually special for RBC. I work with RBC, like collaborate a lot, because they very emphasize technology, emerging technology, right? So as Sahar mentioned, that all those cool technologies, oftentimes you thought, okay, you learn those in the like solution providers, like a Microsoft, Trend Micro. But actually, you can also experience that and learn that from RBC. And so that's actually great kind of a career path if you consider from there. And I know Sahar is leading a team of data scientists, and a very cool team on all those things. So if you're interested, reach out if you're interested in this career path. All right, so let's move to Tahseen. Tell us your story, Tahseen. Tahseen, actually, let me unmute. Okay, yeah, you unmute. Yeah.
Thank you, Bryan, for having me here. Hello, everyone. I'm Tahseen. I graduated from the University of Waterloo in engineering, and since then I've been a cybersecurity company consultant for a large number of organizations, including IBM, large bank in Canada, Fortune 60 Telecom in the US, and more. I was also lead developer of an application security cloud solution called AppScan Source on Cloud, which is a SaaS tool which is used by many Fortune 500 companies. Currently, AppScan got acquired by a company called HCL. In 2017, I left my consulting career to start doing research with three professors out of the University of Waterloo, and through which we incubated Penfield.AI. So Penfield is a cybersecurity company, and we're championing human machine intelligence in the industry. And we built technology which models the skill sets of cybersecurity analysts in real time, which enables us to perform a number of decisions on their behalf to improve the speed and accuracy of cyber attack resolution. Currently, we're deployed within an intelligence sector. In addition, we grew our team by 4 members over the past few months. So currently we're a team of 6, and we're in the process of closing our seed round, which would enable us to grow further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Tahseen not only has a lot of expertise, but he is also an entrepreneur, right? So as you can see. And so if you want to learn more about some of you probably also think about how do you start your own business, or like especially for cybersecurity AI, there's tons of opportunities there, right? So definitely you can learn from insights from Tahseen from that angle as well. Not only just AI cybersecurity, but also entrepreneur and how do you kind of lead a team. All right, cool. Back to Chris. So tell a little bit more about you.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've been with Microsoft, hasn't been that long, a little over a year. I've been 18 months now, and I joined, in November past. And I've really just specialized in the security space for so long. I mean, I've just been a Microsoft proponent. Prior to Microsoft, I worked with a partner in the Lower Mainland. So my patch actually covers Victoria to Winnipeg. So I'm actually Western Canada. So I get a great opportunity to, do presentations in out east. I have a massive number of counterparts that are, very close to me that have been on these sessions as well. And I'm currently actually located on Vancouver Island, so beautiful place to live. And yeah, I absolutely love the security space.
Excellent. And Chris actually spoke last year also in our sessions, so it's great to have him back. All right, Alfredo, tell a little bit more about yourself. I know you're from Brazil, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost talk about soccer or football.
Yeah, that's always comes. So yeah, so I initially started on Trend Micro like 8 years ago in Trend Micro Brazil, and so we used to have this very cool position down there. It was called Regional Trend Labs. I was managing this lab, and it was essentially a place that was at the beginning of this project here. We were looking for local threats and how to best identify them by local characteristics. Like the Brazilian hacker scene is very money motivated, so we see lots of banking Trojans down there. And then 3 years ago, I moved here to Canada, living in Toronto right now, and leading this team doing research on what can go wrong on the cloud.
Okay, what can go wrong on the cloud?
Yeah,
there are
we
tons
try
of
to
things
break
could
stuff.
go wrong right
Yeah.
there. Right? So, yeah, great. So that's research is also very valuable to help us to secure the cloud. All right, let's come to today's session here. I prepared some questions to ask our experts. And I really encourage people online. Because it's also your time, right? So if you have some specific questions, comment, feel free to use either chat or Q&A. I will pick your question as well to ask our panelists. All right, so let's start with my first question. So the logic of my question usually starts with what kind of like a landscape currently in the whole world. So we talk about threat protection. So what are some major cyber threats right now in today's world? From your observation or practice or perspective, what do you think are like a top kind of cyber threats? No specific order, anyone can jump in.
To me, I mean, I see ransomware. I mean, it's a shame we're still talking about it today. I'm sure we've all heard Sierra's wireless news, and it's just, 6 out of my 18 public sector customers out west have been hit with ransomware over the last few years, and it is ramped up extensively, and it is not something we need to, we absolutely have to remain diligent on the ransomware threat. It's just the most common threat I see facing organizations today.
Right. Okay. So ransomware is one. Sahar, you want to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add, like, phishing for me is one of the biggest problem as well. Like we see lots of attacks, lots of breaches because of the phishing, lots of people losing money throughout the industry because of the phishing, right? So even like we might see ransomware because of the phishing, right? So social engineering and phishing is one of the biggest things. Like, I think people have to be very careful and tackle it from lots of different point of view, from proactive detection, from threat hunting detection, from even like education and awareness, like what is phishing, like how not to become victim of phishing for employees and customers, like for both sides.
Great. Yeah, phishing. And both of the ransomware phishing, those kind of are also connected with each other. A lot of times the ransomware is spreading through the phishing attack. But those are two really common. So industry talk a lot. And also with the COVID-19, those things actually increased, right? So we just had a ransomware session in February, and it really can echo those response. All right, cool. Tahseen, what do you see in there?
I think I definitely agree. Ransomware and phishing attacks are on the rise. In addition, I would also mention soft targeted attacks, which can lead to physical harm, are are on the rise as well. Of course, one example would be the recent Florida water treatment attack, where a hacker was able to get control of one of the computers by logging into TeamViewer software, and then the hacker tried to poison the water supplies by increasing the level of sodium hydroxide. And the hacker was thankfully got prevented by, as an employee was monitored, noticed the cursor moving on the machine, which enabled obviously the employee to block the attack. However, this was quite scary, as in the US, just in the US alone, there are over 54,000 similar water treatment facilities, where the protocol on remoting into computers using solutions such as Teamware is quite common. And these organizations are unfortunately underfunded, in which case they might not have access to 24/7 IT security detection and monitoring. So I believe this is a huge threat.
Definitely, because when we think about cybersecurity, a lot of times people just think about IT, but in fact, those infrastructure, the oil and the gas, the water, the supplies, the OT, those are critical, right? So they also impact. And once that got impacted, it's a public safety, not just a computer itself.
My next one on my list was malware targeting critical infrastructure as well. It's a huge threat.
Yeah, so imagine, actually that happened, right? So last time, WannaCry locked the medical devices and all those hospitals penalized that. All right, Alfredo, what do you see? Especially you focus also on the cloud. What do you see the major threat to the cloud as well?
Oh yeah, so there's something we've been talking about in trend is misconfiguration. So as we see the stack being pushed, the shared responsibility model when you are using cloud, especially moving not only cloud but also serverless, like pushing another stack up. So misconfigurations are kind of comparable nowadays to vulnerabilities. So you can easily make a mess if you leave something up and running and open without the right permissioning, and that's something we've been seeing a lot on the cloud. And again, to end the loop with the presentation, I've just made few of the problems I've seen happening on the clouds being targeted has very close relationship with those services being misconfigured by the same old chmod 777 for Linux users. Like when you need to give too much permissions, you end up giving it all, right? Using when you're giving permission for one service to communicate to another, and then your projects start growing, and you end up giving permission to everything, basically. Yeah, so misconfiguration, at least on cloud perspective, it's a big thing.
Sure. Yeah, because although cloud is cool, right? So it doesn't matter which cloud you're using, and it's powerful, but if you don't configure well, so technology is there, but if people don't use it well, so in fact, that's even generate more vulnerabilities. So definitely misconfiguration is one concern. All right, of course, there's so many others, and appreciate your input from your perspective. Those are really important for us. All right, move forward. Next question. So we know there are so many threats. In fact, we know there's so many here and there. So when we talk about threat protection, right? So it's not an easy job. And I think in Alfredo's presentation, you also mentioned this is a cat mouse game, right? So this is a thing. So what do you see are some biggest challenges when you try to do the threat protection? So why is so difficult to do it? Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's a very old saying, but we need to be right at all times, and attackers, they just need to be right once.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, they are always evolving, and they are always finding new ways to break things up, and we have to be able to be ahead of them, and it's essentially a cat mouse game.
Exactly. Just like I'm putting the soccer story, I never want to be a goalkeeper because I can make 99 times right. Only as long as I made one mistake, I will lose the game, and I'm the person to blame. So that kind of a story there. All right, Sahar, what do you see the challenges?
So we, as a protecting company or protecting bank, we evolve using big data, machine learning, and all these new emerging technologies, cloud and everything. The threat actors doing the same, and that makes it more interesting as well. So now they have access to AI, like these information are public, right? So they have access to AI, they have access to cloud, they have access to all of these new and emerging technologies as well. So they not only like we evolve, they evolve as well all the time, and that makes it again cat and mouse like chase. I would say is the best expression we can say. So it doesn't matter how much we evolve and control against all different threats, they find a new way using new technology to attack. So like now, like with the company is going to more and more becoming AI based and automation based, like they are start attacking AI systems. Right? So this is a reality, and it's a challenging because most of these information and technologies are becoming cheap and available for everyone, including threat actors. And yeah, we always have to think one step ahead of them and all the time.
Sure. Yes. Any technology is two sides, right? So it really depends on who use that. And they maybe have a more reason to use because they're driven by the business reasons, right? Well, to use that, and more motivated to leverage the latest cool technology. Then they probably also a quick learner, right? to leverage those power of the technologies. All right, Tahseen, what do you see there? The challenges.
So I definitely agree with Sahar. So I think during a lot of our previous discussions, Bryan, we did touch on how hackers are bypassing machine learning detection. And I think a prime example would be the recent attack on SolarWinds. If we really dissect the malware which was spread, and I'm sure Alfredo might add more on top of it due to his reverse engineering background, we'll notice a number of great trends. One would be the malware blended really nicely with the underlying software, so it was pretty hard to detect. Next, the malware was communicating in a manner which mimicked the API communication of SolarWinds. Next, the malware was using domain generative algorithms in order to change the subnets to make it harder to detect. Finally, the malware was using time delays in between communications to further make it more difficult to detect. So these are attacks or communications which would lead to low signals in your different detection tools. In which case, they would closely reside with the statistical norm. So it's going to be harder to detect.
Okay, great. That's a great insight. In fact, we have actually a question from audience. I think that's an anchor to ask. Can you elaborate how to detect advanced threats like SolarWinds quickly? Right. So Tahseen, you actually touch on that. Our next question will come on that one. So our next question will be actually let's land on exactly the similar questions. How can we protect better, detect more accurate, and respond faster? And what kind of things we can do? And for that, I'd like to actually start with Chris. What do you think about that?
We need to adopt a zero trust approach. I mean, taking the stance on the last question around challenges, I mean, secure remote work is a huge challenge. Everybody's at home, everybody's working on their personal devices. We need to adopt a zero trust approach. We can't be accepting that if it's inside our network, things are trusted anymore. We have to understand that incorporating signals like device health and go passwordless and all these other technologies to provide a better framework for our remote workers is super important in order to work securely.
So zero trust become the industry mainstream, and we hear actually our last month's session is focused on zero trust. And so that's not just a technology, but really it's a model of philosophy, right? So never trust, always verify.
Yeah,
rather
and
than
as was the
use-
case in SolarWinds, I mean, many of those attackers were able to skirt, as we commented on earlier, that those signals went unnoticed because they were coming from inside. Many people weren't thinking that these were threat signals. They were just standard actors doing standard things in the environment. And we need to scrutinize our own employees and our own vendors exactly like we do everybody else.
Excellent. All right, Sahar, what do you think? How can we protect better, detect more accurate, and respond faster?
Yeah, like zero trust is one of things like we have to do. The other thing is automation, I would say one of the keys, and proactive behavior, proactive detection. Like again, it's come from the zero trust mindset, proactively monitor everybody and try to behavior, like maybe UBA or UEBA would be good solutions, right? To check models, to check everything. Smallest change in behavior, make sure you notify them. And then Chris mentioned it in his talk, when you look at the anomaly, maybe look at anomaly from different point of views, from different angles, right? For the system, if the system start communicating, is it anomalous or not? The communicating sounds robotic or not? Is it trying to contact with another location that's not usually there? It wasn't like past 5 months, 6 months, they didn't do that, did not try establish that connection, and suddenly they are pinging, the API was pinging some server or outside. DGA detection techniques is one of them. So multi-dimensional anomaly detection would be the best, and automate the whole process. So it's if somebody hits 5 of these things during a day, or I don't know, a week or a month, just act on it fast, look at it and act on it.
Anomaly detection, automation. So those are really to reduce, because if you rely everything on human, that will definitely be slow, and and an error, right? So there will potentially there's an error happening there. So automation really is a key here.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, work on response times. Understand that these passive alerts that come in and we end up sleeping through them, we need to understand how quickly we respond. A funny example is at Microsoft, we all in the security space have got caught by our own CDOC many times. And if I run a malicious command on my endpoint or even in an isolated lab, how quickly I will get that email and be escalated to my manager. Those are the things you want to work to improve upon, because they make the difference. Minutes matter in these discussions.
Excellent. And before I pass that one to Tahseen, I'm sure Tahseen has a lot of things on this angle to really how that improve that one, and some cool things happening. I will ask Alfredo from your point of view, because you have a lot of from pen test perspective, right? So from the hacker point of view to look at that. So what do you see that? So how can we protect better?
Yeah, so thanks. I was just about to jump in, and I'll probably be super biased here, but my point of view is either I understand that's not the core of most of the companies having a security team, but I strongly believe on, and that's especially for AI and ML, the amount of intelligence and the amount of right data you have will determine how good are you going to be to respond faster, right? So I see the work, the researching work that we do, like threat hunting work that we do, that is super vital here to have better data, to have and red teaming as well, like red teaming your own environment, like on very in a good time frame. I strongly believe on that. And I mean,
Excellent.
if I know that that's not the core of most companies, but having a partner or hiring this kind of service can be very beneficial.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
before Tahseen, so just because I want to add something to Alfredo's thing, my team, JSOC has actually 4 different teams, threat hunting, data science, adversary emulation, and development team that helps with automation. So like all these 4 teams work together very closely to develop security capabilities and like controls for RBC. And like I agree with like Alfredo, like you have to make sure, and like we obviously work with threat intelligence, with SOC, with insider threat teams, like all these like core groups, but all of them together can protect the companies.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. It's a process. It's not like a single function, right? So you have to rely on each other. And what Alfredo also mentioned that really is the input, right? So the source, the input, the signal, those are really important to impact the result. And with that, I also pass to Tahseen to comment on. I know you actually, that's actually the area your company's focus. So can you share some insights from there?
Absolutely, Bryan. Well, firstly, I would like to mention that I agree with all the esteemed panelists. Definitely, zero trust is the way to go. In addition, I like Sahar's points around, always monitoring for weak signals, and I also like Chris's points around like focusing on mean time to resolve incidents, which is critical. Of course, threat hunting is important as well. So I'll have a different answer. So our focus is on human-machine intelligence. So from our research, we have noticed that AI and humans have bring different strengths to the table. AI is brilliant at solving repetitive processes at scale. So AI is also great at solving problems in closed systems where the rules of the game are defined and where there's limited external intervention. And this is great because AI can, of course, work at machine scale, and of course, AI doesn't get burnout like, of course, like us humans. However, on the flip side, humans bring a lot of strengths to the table. Humans are imaginative. Humans might have contextual awareness of the problem and other processes which might be outside the scope of the data. Humans can also anticipate trends in the environment, which enables humans to move from short-term thinking to long-term thinking, which is quite beneficial when we look at real-time monitoring, where you have hackers who are trying to stitch different attack vectors in order to penetrate and to get a foothold into the system. So the objective becomes, how do we make humans and AI work in a way so that we can improve speed as well as accuracy of incident resolution? And that's where human-machine intelligence comes in. It's a very interesting way to mesh machines with humans.
All right. So what I hear is the collaboration between AI algorithm and the human, and leverage the advantage of both, right? So that's come up with a solution. Although it sounds easy to talk about, but in fact, when you do it, there's a lot of things which that's part of the reason like a company like Tahseen's company will contribute around this one and pilot some solutions there. All right, cool. Okay, so we mentioned the zero trust, we mentioned automation, we mentioned like the threats and right now the landscape. While we are doing, one consensus we know is we are using AI, automation, machine learning to support this function. So while you are doing that, are there any like security, privacy concerns, especially for the data, right? So when you're doing the data processing and when you come up with some algorithm, are there any like a security, I don't know, the privacy, security, or even ethics side of things, so the consideration you need to pay attention to? And I know Sahar has a lot of things to say on that one, so I let Sahar start first.
Oh, a lot. I can talk about it for hours and hours. Yes, and like it depends. First of all, I have to say it depends about the regulations and the company you are, industry you are. It's like it varies for all industries. Like if you are in health industries, like I think regulation and like privacy, especially privacy controls, are very, very more than like if you are, I don't know, in university level industry. So I just don't know like who doesn't have massive regulation. That's like, but like for bank, obviously we have like lots of regulation. We are like at RBC, we are international banks, like so customers or things, and US have their own regulations, Europe has their own regulation, and Canada has their own regulation, Asia has their own. So like every branch, every group is different. Customers, PII information is another thing we have to be considered, like privacy of customers, privacy of the clients, privacy of even the employees. And also we have to train ourselves and the like analysts who gets the results, like the team who gets the results on these results are AI, especially AI-based results are probability-based information. Like it's not 0-1. Like if we say, okay, this person is an insider threat actor, you have to understand, like especially for the our team, like I think security people are more seeing the example rather than data science team who doesn't have security background, like it's a new. But you have to understand that if you see your colleague's name in a list, it doesn't mean they are doing anything malicious. It doesn't mean they are doing something like not good. They are insider threat. It just means like at that specific time they have an anomalous behavior. So for example, when we went online, everybody had anomalous behavior. Like suddenly, like it's like everybody's behavior changed. And then during the lockdown, like okay, I don't know, like in the different part of the world, but in Canada, during like first few months, the lockdown happened, the schools were closed, everywhere, like the daycares were closed. So people who have kids, people who have elders to take care of, like they had to work in odd hours, right? You have to, in the morning you take care of kids, like in the afternoon you finish your work. So like anomalous behavior was all over the place, right?
Yeah,
and then you
that's so true.
Yeah. So there are so many things you have to consider. You have to make sure your model is not biased. You have to make sure the information you are using, these are all probability. You have to encrypt your data. If you can run information on encrypted data, like if you have that capability, keep it. Like you have to make sure, do not search your name or your friend's name in the list of like suspicious people or in the like, I don't know, like financial data, right? You have to be like, there are tons of training, there are tons of ethic training, bias training. We make sure my team like has it, like the people who work in sensible data has it. The data have to be protected at all the time and respected at all the time, because these are people's life, right? These are people information that we are getting. So yeah, there are so many, like I'm not sure like how many of them I can talk in the short amount of time here. There are so many things, like even again, but I would say like the most important thing is for everybody to understand these are probability. This is not wrong and right. Yeah. This is probability that this person show anomalous behavior, not malicious behavior. Then like analysts, some other set of eyes have to come up, look at it, go deep dive to those information to see, is it malicious or not?
Excellent. You bring a lot of insights there. Yeah, Alfredo, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to tie what she just said, that was beautifully said, and tying that with a previous topic. And this is actually one of the challenges we have when we are dealing with these threat actors, because we care very much about the data and we do the right with the data, but they don't, right? So that's a point of leverage of them, right? We have to follow the rules, we have to respect the privacy, we have to respect everything. And it actually put us, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, and the opposite, but it puts us one step behind because we have to be very careful with the data, right?
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah, I mean, I'll add to that, be open with your employees on the mission around cybersecurity. Be very transparent on the data you collect. At Microsoft, cybersecurity is part of our culture. We take training. We understand that we're monitored. We understand that these threats facing the organization are extremely serious, and our jobs depend on it. And I think people are a little more willing to participate in cybersecurity programs when you're a little more transparent and honest.
Right. And what I hear actually so far, actually, that's a very important message, because a lot of times when we talk about data processing or AI, we tend to focus on technology itself. right? So, or the algorithm itself. What Sahar mentioned that one really is you have to become a human, become like you need to think about context. So there's a beautiful example you mentioned, like not like working from home, the kids. So all of a sudden become sounds like anonymous, right? So, but there's no black and white. You have to understand the situation. Just like you are the financial analyst, you need, not only you need to understand the money, but you also need to understand the context of the world, right? So that can help you. So the greatest, like a scientist, data scientist, not just know how to mathematic things, right? So that's actually very important. Of course, Alfredo's point, it's not a very fair game, right? So we have restrictions on processing data, while hackers, they may not have that one. So they may achieve something faster, but we have to follow the rules, and the regulation also very important. You have to understand it. Tahseen, what do you want to share something like that?
I think the points that which have been mentioned so far are brilliant. So it alludes to the importance of having humans in the loop. So for instance, even before we make automated decisions, if there are probabilities, if we're not 100% confident, having an expert to really assess the situation would be critical. In addition, even when we deal with anonymized data, there's still a few things we need to keep, we should keep in mind. One would be the challenge of re-identification attacks. So even if we have anonymized data, there could be a potential for an outsider to understand an entity, identify an entity within our data set by correlating with other data sets as well. So that's something which we can look into. Another one would be data reconstruction attacks. So many times our machine learning models can spit out certain information which could help us better understand the characteristics of a data set. So when we look at deep learning or neural networks, the neural networks have store some memory of the data which we're trained on, which can be cross-referenced looking at the weights of the machine learning model. So in image recognition, there have been attacks where you can understand some features of the data. So that could lead to data leakage.
All right, so there's certain technology also can manage and handle theirs as well. All right, cool. All right, so let's move on to the next questions. So when you come up with, because at the end of the day, although we loved those technology side or process side, but I think communication, we cannot like undermine the effect of communication, because cybersecurity a lot of times is talking about communication or like sync with each other. So let's say you come up with, especially for security operations center, so you detect something, you find something, or you want to generate a report. So how can you work with the stakeholders to better unlock the insights? So you found something, how can you tell a story to different stakeholders? Maybe your boss, the leaders, or maybe cybersecurity professional, or IT people, or just a regular business operation. So how do you tell the story? Who wants to tell a story first? Go ahead.
Maybe I can start. So that's a great point, and this is something we encounter during sales process as well, and was a great learning curve for me. So usually when we look at products, for instance, we look at different KPIs. So our product can improve the speed of incident resolution by X percentage, but that percentage might mean different things to different folks. So having the ability to speak at the right level across different stakeholders would be critical. For instance, a senior decision maker might be more interested in the return on investment on your tool. A researcher might be interested in how do you get the that improvement. You know, what are the assumptions in the data and more. So again, translating that raw fact in a meaningful manner across different stakeholders would be critical. And this requires an understanding of what different folks care about within the organization.
Yeah, so understand the audience, that's really important. Sahar, what do you want to add on?
So for me, like our cases is a little bit special because like we develop use cases based on stakeholder needs. Like the stakeholders ask us to deliver that. So from the day one we start developing use case, we work with the stakeholders, with business partners, hands to hand. Like we meet them on regular basis to understand like how to develop data. If the model we are developing, the protection we are developing, it serves their need or not? Like, is it actually their problem? Because we have tons of data at the bank, and we can develop lots of insight, lots of cool things out of those data, but it not necessarily means that we are solving anybody's problem or like solving bank's problem, right? So like one thing we make sure is like we understand the problem, like for example, in PNCB, in personal banking groups, in capital market group, and develop the model with them. And then while we are doing that, we identify like line of escalation. So if we see this thread, if we see this alert, who should be informed? Like, or who are the people who should inform to act on that? Like, is it SOC, is threat intelligence, threat hunting team, red team? Like the line of escalation, like fraud analysts, like AML analysts, who are the people we should inform right away and follow up? We took that practice with almost all the partners that identified their need. So like when we develop, the data and insight we get is like, it's what they need, right? To serve their need. And also line of the escalation, like if we see the result, who should be informed, and then like we automatically inform those people. Even like with the same model with different scenarios, we inform different people. So if we see this type of the threat, we inform group 1, like group 2, like we automate all those things from the beginning to make sure like everybody is aware of what's going on. Like this is on top of what Tahseen said. Like again, if you want to report to executive, it's completely different than if you want to report to analysts or the people who has to act on it. Right?
Really, at the end of the day, is like what you said, to meet their needs, right? So to tell the good story is not based on your understanding, really based on what they need and how do you solve their issues. And it's not like you come up with a fancy dashboard. I see so many solutions with a dashboard, all kind of numbers there, but doesn't mean when you have a beautiful dashboard, people will understand it. And a lot of times it's even more confusing, right? So Alfred and Chris, what do you see on that?
I mean, I'll say, treat your data as an asset. The more you use your data, use it extensively. Many organizations say, hey, we have lots of data, but many stakeholders don't really know what to do with it. And at Microsoft, we actively use our threat intelligence data. As Sahar commented on that escalation path, if something happens to my endpoint, my manager gets an email within seconds. Not only that, but we actively use that data to proactively govern our assets. So if my asset or my endpoint I'm currently using is under attack, I'm cut off immediately from that approach. There's no, escalation path and response. We actively use this data, and doing so helps stakeholders get a better idea of how to properly use this data in what we call an active governance fashion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, go ahead.
And going along those lines and also giving like a real life example, if I find a new, I guess compartmentalize data is the key here. So if I find something new happening in the wild, if it's something related to cloud, should I give it to the cloud developing team to better develop a protection for that? If it's something happening in the network, should I send that to the IPS team to write a rule to block that? And raise awareness on the affected system like Docker or whatever. I think compartmentalize data and find the right receptor for that specific data is the key.
Excellent. Yeah, so really so the key takeaway from there really is who do you tell the story and what do they need, and or how do you kind of not just one time. It's not like I talk to you, I understand that as I said, you need to on a regular basis to communicate with them to truly understand what because their needs can change, right? So it's not like today I needed this, tomorrow I need the same thing. Their business also are going. So it's more like kind of like in the agile product development way, they usually have a customer champion, right? So understand their ways, right, to do that. That's back to my development background. Always struggling with that one. All right. Okay. So we're actually coming to almost the end of this panel discussion. Two last very important questions. One is, where do you see the industry is going with the threat protection? We talk about a lot of current situation, the challenge, solution, and communication. What about the future? What do you see the industry is going in the next, let's say, 1 year or 2 years? What kind of trend do you observe for the threat protection? And actually, I want to start with Tahseen because he must be very sensitive about what's going on in the world, right? So,
I think everyone in our industry is quite sensitive with all the trends which
let's just start first. Yeah,
have been happening. So I would say, I mean, I think solutions which assume, like say, similar to zero trust, where you're breached and how are you, what are the next steps? I think that would be the path. So when we look at, for instance, all the nation state attacks which have been happening, they're quite scary. I mean, I would quote Nicole Perlot. She's a New York Times a journalist, and according to her, she talks about the notion of battlefield preparation, where hackers already have a foothold into our organization. They have been monitoring our systems. They're just waiting for the right time to execute an attack. I mean, it could be disrupting our critical infrastructure. It could be ransomwares on hospitals. It could be, I mean, again, the water, so attacks on our water supplies, power supplies, and more. So I think that's where the industry is heading. And I think like the SolarWinds attack was a great example of how hackers got a foothold into an organization, but they were really, surveying our networks. But why? Like, what's the next step, right? So even with the recent zero-day attacks, they're opening up back doors in our infrastructure for hackers to plan to perform the next task. So that's the real question mark. So what's next? So we are already breached, and our solutions should, I would say, should assume that and take next steps.
Okay, got that. That's a really important element. So what's the next? How do we handle that one? And especially some of them already enter the door. Right. Okay. All right. Anyone want to share?
I mean, I'll say attackers are evolving, right? I mean, they're getting more and more sophisticated. They're using our own internal tools. They're building infrastructure on Azure and AWS. We're going to see this trend continue, and we're going to have to up our game in order to stay in alignment with them. I think IoT threats, as we discussed earlier, is a massive threat. The number of IoT devices has just exploded, and the threats to manufacturing and critical infrastructure, I think that's a big trend we're going to see in the course of the next year.
Sure, IoT. And I saw Louis online just comment out. So those are devices like Alexa, like Google, those are kind of like IoT as well, right? So everybody is using that one. So how do you?
Now, there was a funny article a few years ago about a fish tank heater, a smart fish tank heater that led to a breach in a casino. That if you take a look, it's crazy the innovative techniques that these attackers will come up with.
Mm-hmm. And a TV remote can listen to you. Yeah. All right. Sahar, what do you see the future?
I would say like exactly as the team says, like the cloud computing, like enabling cybersecurity experts and threat hunting, and threat actors all the time, right? And we have to be very, very cautious of those activity. And then they are going to use lots of AI-based, ML-based attacks that like hide their footsteps, hide their techniques, as like Tahseen mentioned previously, like for robotic behavior, they are going to be more smart and smart, make it harder for us to detect. Like they are going to it's not like robotic behavior, like it's more like human behavior. So they study human behavior and try to mimic as much as possible they can. So we have to use, like, I would say, proactive detection, UBA, like just fusion of all the things we learned during these past years to like fuse them together to generate next capabilities for like companies like.
Excellent. That's actually you touch on the topic. I think Chris, you mentioned in your slide the fusion center, the fusion, right? So so everything like together. It's not just a separate function, and especially for the online digital world, who do you know behind the screen, or like is that a real person, or is that a malware? Is that a malicious bot? So really, who are they, right? Alfred, what do you see the future?
Sorry. Well, I guess lots being said. I'm not sure if I can contribute much more, but I guess we are changing. At least I'm seeing around my non-security technical around. People are presuming that they're going to be breached at some point. I guess this is a good behavior changing that's going to impact in the near future. So people are going to be more careful, knowing the risks of exposing themselves. And I'm talking about that personally, but also in a professional way as well, like publishing code without having making sure that the code is really secure. So I guess this awareness that you're going to be breached at some point. I think it's going to be more, it's going to grow stronger, and it's going to shape the future.
So you actually also touching on the important element, the resilience side, right? So it's not like just like we always often use the story, it's like a boxing. It's not like you hit, like you win. Really, it's how do you sustain that, right? So you take the hits, but you still can keep going, right? So this is the very important concept. All right. Considering of time, the last question, I can only allow you to give one quick tip about talent development. And cybersecurity is very hot, as we know, and the industry also short of talent. And especially when we combine cybersecurity, AI, data scientists, all those cool technology together, this field, we need more talent. So what's your recommendation or career kind of a suggestion for people want to enter this field, or they're already on this career path? I start with Sahar, because you are leading quite many like those experts there. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a person who studied as an astrophysicist and turned to cybersecurity, the first thing I would say, don't be afraid, right? None of my team members are having security background. They are all either physicists, engineers, or big data experts. And then like we started here, and then like during years, we had so many good colleagues that teach us the security side. So especially if you want to go to big data, AI part of the house, like these are not, you don't need to be a security expert per se to develop the models. You just need to understand the data and lean on experts you like in your company, your group, to help you develop that expertise and understand the data better. So as I said, don't be afraid. Like take it, just start.
Yeah, you started, and so it doesn't matter you start from cybersecurity or you start from data science or start from AI.
Yeah.
When you start, you can cross the domain like after that, right?
Exactly.
So, but if you don't start, it'll never happen.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So you get encouragement from Sahar, right? So yeah, let's start. And okay, who else? Alfredo, what do you see? Like, what's your quick suggestion for people?
So if I could summarize in just one, it would be curious. I guess that's brought me here, that's especially true on offensive security side. Be curious on how things work. Never think you know enough. Always be curious and to go to the bottom of something, right? And that's how we break things when we are doing like offensive stuff, right? And keep this curiosity burning inside. I guess that's what I value more on my teammates, on when someone is moving to our team or getting hired. That's something I always try to spot, that if the person is curious enough to go to the bottom of the whatever questions or analysis or anything.
Yeah, Absolutely. Although hacker, the term for hacker is a lot of times associated with bad things, but we also observe the like a hackathon, like all those are the one you mentioned, the curiosity, like curious about things and doing things out of the box, which actually very good for threat hunting and like pen test, all those fields. All right,
Yeah,
cool.
I'll reiterate Alfredo's comment. It is red teaming. Honestly, like I've been spend so much time in the Microsoft game that last year they actually made us take certified ethical hacker, which is nothing to do with Microsoft, and taking the time to learn how attackers think, what are the tools they use, and actually going through that learning, it's really better equipped me to understand cybersecurity in general.
Right, exactly. You need to understand on the other side of the game, right? So
Yep.
that will help you to protect better. Okay, Tahseen, well, what do you see?
I think these are great points. I would also mention curiosity and never stop learning, and don't be afraid to ask for help. So I usually reach out to a number of people if I have questions, and anyone's open to reaching out to me if I could add any value. All
right, that's very important. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Of course, ask a right question. You don't want to bother like repeat, but you want to reach out to the industry experts to get that guidance, coaching, help, and we have 4 people here, so you know who to ask, right? Okay, cool. Considering the time, that's all the time we have, and I really appreciate everybody come tonight. You spend here almost like 2 hours and during the evening time and share the insights with us. We really appreciate that. So I'd like to ask everybody online, give a virtual pat to our fantastic panel speakers. All right, so thank you very much, everybody.